In this episode, to celebrate G.I. Joe July, we're going to take a look at some of the raddest rides in the 80s that would fit perfectly in your G.I. Joe motor pool. So, stick around. Fellow dorks and dorkettes, and welcome to Nostalgia Syndrome. My name is Rob, and in this episode, to celebrate G.I. Joe July, we are going to take a look at some of the raddest rides in 80s action figure vehicles. Now, these are the vehicles that will work perfectly with your classic 3 3/4 inch G.I. Joe figures. Now, it's not going out on a limb by saying that these vehicles would fit your classic 3 3/4 inch G.I. Joe figures perfectly, because they are from toy lines that were heavily inspired by G.I. Joe. Now, of course, a lot of people throw around the term knockoff, and I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of rip-off, because a lot of these vehicles and the figures of these toy lines have their own merits. And what is wrong with inviting some new blood into your G.I. Joe forces or Cobra forces and inventing your own playtime universe with them all jumbled up? You know, I'm a big fan of just playing with what you have and just having a blast. But enough of that. You all know my MO. So let's get to number one. Our first rad ride is the LX1 Road Raider. Now, this was in the American Defense toy line released by Remco in 1986. Now, Remco had many different toy lines that all revolved around the classic G.I. Joe mold, the O-ring figure, if you will. And I think every year they released a new toy line, and they were American Defense, American Commando, what have you. But anyway, I think they're awesome. I'm a big fan of Remco, and this Fast Attack Turbo Chopper was a pretty cool vehicle that you could add to your G.I. Joe motor pool. I mean, you can't have enough awesome motorcycles for your G.I. Joe figures. Now, it doesn't have a lot of play features, but it comes fully armed with twin rockets and cannons. And like I said, there's no real play features, so it's not like the rockets could fire off or anything, but it's still cool nonetheless. It came packaged with an action figure that he went simply by the moniker of Defender. And yes, he's a little generic, but I mean, he would fit perfectly with the OG Joe figures from '82, so there's nothing really wrong with that. The ones online that I have found aren't complete, so here is a later release. Like I said, every year they seem to update their figures that shows you a more complete version of the LX1. Now, this one has a desert camo motif, while the original was kind of a basic green. So definitely add both of them to your motor pool, which would be pretty cool. Now, these go for a relatively low price online, and the reason for that, like I said, is because there's not many complete, if any, complete versions of it for sale. Like I said, it's always cool to have another motorcycle for your G.I. Joe motor pool. Now, our second vehicle comes from Olmec Toys, and this is from the Bronze Bomber toy line. This is the Battle Hovercraft, which was released in 1988. Now, I love this. The Bronze Bomber toy line, I think, is completely awesome. I'm lucky enough to have a couple of them, and I think they're great figures. This Battle Hovercraft would fit perfectly within your G.I. Joe motor pool. It kind of, for some reason, I think it's the missiles, remind me of the Devilfish, which is definitely one of my favorite little single vehicles in the G.I. Joe toy line. Now, the Battle Hovercraft came with a spinning propeller, movable cannons, and missiles, like I said. And the box makes sure to say that they are non-firing missiles. It also comes with an awesome sailor figure who is Wayne Golden Alexander. And, I mean, he would be awesome as just like a basic sailor for your G.I. Joe Playtime universe. I mean, if you're lucky enough to have the USS Flag, imagine him on the deck. I mean, it would be a perfect setting for this figure. And the Hovercraft, I mean, it could drop off the side of the deck and go on, you know, fighting Cobra or whomever. Now, the history of Olmec Toys is a thing of beauty. They were also the producers of the Sunman figures, which were inspired by Masters of the Universe. And these were made for children of color because, let's be honest, Masters of the Universe and G.I. Joe for the most part are a little too white. But that's just a product of the time, unfortunately. I don't think there was any rhyme or reason to it, but yeah, just a product of the time. I can only find one of these Battle Hovercrafts online for sale, and it goes for a relatively low price, so it would be awesome to get this in my collection one day, but yeah, I'm counting them pennies pretty much like everybody else nowadays. Our third rad ride is something that's very hard to come by. I wouldn't even have known that it existed unless I came upon the package art like I did. Trying to find anything on this was like finding a needle in a haystack. But anyway, this is the Jeep Terrain for the, let me get this right, Mission Medicines Sans Frontiers, which is, I think, the Doctors Without Borders. This is a French toy line made by Perchet in 1989. Now this Jeep, I think, would fit perfectly because there were no real medical vehicles in the G.I. Joe toy line. And as you can see, this Jeep is definitely decked out with the Red Cross symbol and just really says that it's here to help people. Now, as far as playtime features, it didn't really have anything. It has a movable spotlight and sits two people, which is awesome, and it has like a spare tire on the back. I don't know if you can actually remove that and play around with your tires with that, but that would be pretty cool if you could. Now, like I said, it was really hard to find any info on this, but I found some catalog pictures that kind of show it in action with the rest of the toy line. Now, the Jeep came with a character, I believe his name is Aldez. Like I said, it could mean something entirely different on the package since it's in French, but I think his name is Aldez. If that's some other word in French, then I'm completely sorry, but I think his name's Aldez. And, you know, he could be another nameless medic that you could have helping out Doc or Lifeline and driving the Jeep while they're working on patching up one of the Joes that got hit with fire dealing with Cobra. Now, like I said, no real digital footprint for this, so I have no idea what this would ever go for on the, you know, resale market. So yeah, we ended up with a big goose egg when it came to that. But like I said, this would be really awesome to add to your motor pool, just so your medics have a vehicle of their own. Our fourth vehicle is another Remco release, this time from 1988, and for the Commando Force toy line. This is the ACAL, or Assault Craft Amphibious Lander. I mean, they kind of forced that acronym a little bit, lander. I mean, it's pretty much a Zodiac boat that comes with an outboard motor, paddles, twin machine guns, a twin laser gun, and rope. Can never have enough rope. Now the one thing, looking at the packaging, it says Sears on it. So I'm not 100% sure if this was a Sears exclusive or this was just something that was purchased through maybe their Christmas wish book that year or what have you. But I think this is pretty cool. Now, Cobra had the night landing kind of Zodiac boat. It would be cool to have a G.I. Joe equivalent of it, and I think this would fit the bill perfectly. Again, I couldn't really find any of these for resale out there, so again, we are left with a big goose egg when it comes to a price. Now, our fifth and final Raddest Ride of the 80s is from the biggest franchise on the list and goes for the biggest money on the resale market. This is the Interceptor jet bomber for the A-Team toy line, released by Galoob in 1984. This smallish jet is awesome. It came with a Murdoch figure, which is an awesome bonus, but I mean, this is probably 3 to 4 times smaller than a Sky Striker, so it would be really small to have in your collection. And like I said, if you were lucky enough to have the USS Flag, you could have a couple of these all stacked up on the deck, ready to go out and bomb the crap out of Cobra. Now, it comes with some of the most awesome accessories. It comes with a little tow car, great. It comes with a ladder for the pilot to get into the opening cockpit, has removable landing gear, which on the back of the package it does say removable, so I don't know if you pop them off or they do flip up on board. I'm not really sure. And it has a bomb release function. Super cool. And it also has some missiles, so yeah, this thing is awesome. I love the color, and like I said, this would fit perfectly in your G.I. Joe motor pool because it's a little bit smaller than like the Sky Striker or the Conquest or some of your other jets for the G.I. Joe toy line. And you get a Murdoch figure. You can't go wrong with that. And like I mentioned, this is definitely the most expensive item on this list in the resale market. It's actually quite staggering to see how much it goes for. I mean, that price is in package, which makes sense, but yeah, who would have thought that just a Galoob A-Team toy line would command such a top dollar nowadays? Okay folks, that was 5 of the Raddest rides of the 80s that would fit perfectly in your G.I. Joe motor pool. And like I said, it's not really that big of a stretch because these toy lines, even the A-Team, were inspired by the original 3 3/4 O-ring G.I. Joe figures. So, I mean, these figures would fit perfectly with no problem at all into your playtime universe. And, I mean, you would bolster your ranks for G.I. Joe or Cobra with these figures and you wouldn't even bat an eye. I mean, they are super awesome. And unfortunately, some of them are a little generic, but that actually works in their favor because there weren't a lot of, you know, normal foot soldiers or green shirts for your G.I. Joes back then. Of course, now they've released some, but back in the day, all you had were the main characters. But the cartoon showed that there were other soldiers running around, and yeah, this would have been a great way to add some of those regular dudes into your G.I. Joe ranks. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a thumbs up. If you got something to say, please leave a comment. I love reading them and I love getting back to everyone. And if you're new around here and you enjoyed this or any of the episodes that YouTube is recommending down here, please hit subscribe. And if you hit that little bell icon, you will be notified whenever there's new episodes. So anyway, until next time, thanks for watching. Keep being rad and stay dorky.